also the Surrey Union of Drug Users, and other drug user organizations around BC. So thank you so much for having me today. It's really great to be here. We also do a lot of work over the years defending tent cities, people who are experiencing homelessness, people who experience police brutality, and also working for the rights of sex workers. So it's really great to be here and to hopefully have a good discussion about some of the new things that are happening in BC drug policy. All of them are bad, but it's good to know what's happening, and it's good to keep in mind what our rights are and what to be aware of. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of walk us through the slides, but honestly, if you have questions at any point, raise your hand, yell at me. If you want me to move on to something different, I'm also happy to improvise. So you just let me know. So in terms of what I'm planning on talking about today, and this might shuffle depending on how you all are feeling, several sort of new updates in drug policy. The first is recriminalization. I'm thinking most of you have already heard about this, but this is the change since BC's decriminalization pilot project. I put it in quotes because it wasn't really full decriminalization, but they tried to do something and then they walked it back. So I'll talk about recriminalization and some of the exceptions to enforcement of things like simple drug possession. I can walk us through some of the Know Your Rights pieces of speaking with police, or really rather not speaking with police, which is my suggestion. And your rights on detention and arrest, as well as Cop Watch, which is the process of filming or archiving or keeping track of how police are treating people. I'll also do a brief update on DULF, which is the Drug User Liberation Front, the group that was based in Vancouver doing a Safe Supply Compassion Club, who's facing multiple criminal charges, and just kind of talking through what that looks like and what the possible outcomes are. And then I'm going to talk briefly about some changes to supportive housing laws in BC. So we can talk about if people are comfortable sharing, if they live in supportive housing, and kind of what the BC government is doing to take away the rights of people who live in supportive housing. So recriminalization in BC, as of February 1st of 2026, BC's quote-unquote decriminalization pilot has come to an end. What the decriminalization pilot project was basically saying for a period of 3 years in BC, it would no longer be a criminal offense to possess certain drugs of certain quantities in certain places. We would argue that in order for decriminalization to be an effective and good policy, you need to just not arrest people for possessing drugs ever. Different people use different amounts of substances. 2.5 grams, which was the amount that they decriminalized, is not sufficient for a lot of people. My friend Kevin at the Vancouver Area Network of Drug Users, when he heard that the threshold quantity was 2.5 grams, he said, that's my breakfast. That is not going to protect me. I'm still going to face arrest because I possess a lot more than 2.5 grams at a time. And we say that if you want to encourage people to go to a supervised consumption site, or go to an overdose prevention site, or just not be in jail, you need to fully decriminalize drug possession. And that's a basic form of harm reduction. And it must also be paired with legally regulating the drug supply so that people have access to a regulated and predictable supply of drugs. But in the meantime, let's not throw people in jail for possessing drugs. So BC kind of made a slight effort to decriminalize, again, small amounts of certain substances. And according to its own data, this pilot project was actually successful in reducing the amount of police interactions that people faced around the province, and it reduced the amount of people in jail. It also made, according to certain data, Indigenous youth felt more comfortable accessing supervised consumption sites and overdose prevention sites because they didn't fear arrest while walking en route to one of these sites. So those are all net positives, right? And that was the data by which BC said it was going to examine its own pilot project. And even though it achieved its own goals, it still rolled it back. And so that is a really clear indicator that this was a bit of a political stunt. I think we all know in this room that the BC government has made quite clear that they don't care about drug users, and that when they say they're trying to keep drug users safe, they're actively taking steps to do the opposite. So, you know, this is depressing, of course, but it's also just a good reminder for us all in this room that we have to keep pushing. And the fact that it got rolled back is disappointing, but you know, this policy itself is something that never would have happened 15, 20 years ago. It's because we get together, we talk to each other, we push government, we know our rights. That's why we're able to achieve policies like that in the first place, and that's what we need to keep doing. So big ups to everyone who's in this room today, because it's important to get together and organize. So just for your own knowledge, as of now, it is once again a criminal offense to possess any amount of drugs for your own use. That includes in your own home, unfortunately. I don't know the extent to which that's being enforced, but that is what it says on the books. And the other thing to note is that, you know, there are certain spaces in which you will not, or you should not, be arrested or charged or convicted of simple drug possession.
What about paraphernalia?
Great question. So you can see at the very bottom of this slide, it says, it is not a criminal offense to possess harm reduction gear or drug paraphernalia. That said, I have definitely seen in certain small towns that when the harm reduction supplies are used, or if there's like residue in a pipe, I have actually seen people get, you know, jacked up or messed with by police. That, I don't know, has anyone experienced that here?
It just happened right
Absolutely.
now.
Oh.
Over here.
Yeah, happens every day.
Yeah, so that's really upsetting, and perhaps something to talk about for future advocacy in terms of, like, you know, these are presumably supplies that the health authority is handing out, that the Ministry of Health is encouraging people to use and access life-saving supplies, and then you have police at the same time confiscating or using these supplies to charge people. So that's, you know, that might be something to talk about further if you want to do more advocacy around that, because that's absolutely ridiculous. So some of the exceptions to criminalization of drug possession, you know, there's valid prescriptions. If you have a prescription, the drugs are in your name, that's technically a form of decriminalization. That is an ability to possess drugs that are otherwise illegal, but because you have a prescription in your name, you're permitted to. So that's a form of legal regulation that we have. It's very limited, obviously, but that's one place in which you can expect not to be arrested for possessing your own prescriptions. Yay. Another space is sanctioned sites. So that's supervised consumption sites and overdose prevention sites and certain drug checking facilities. And anywhere else that there is a legal exemption that applies. For now, the only places I've seen those, for the most part, are in consumption sites. But a reminder that while walking en route from wherever you are to a supervised consumption site with drug in hand, that is once again an opportunity for police to arrest, which again is completely counterintuitive to the idea that we're telling people to access supervised consumption sites, but then saying, oh, but you might be arrested on the way for going to, you know, use your drugs as safely as possible. I won't say this as my legal advice, but I would say that if you are stopped with substances, you can say that you are going to a supervised consumption site, and they may be more forgiving. I've definitely seen that happen in the downtown east side. When people are told that they're going to be stopped for drug possession, they'll say, I'm just heading to Insight, and that can sometimes alleviate things. A final piece, Good Samaritan Drug Overdose Act, that means that if you call 911 when there's an overdose, no one at the scene of the overdose, whether it's the person who overdosed, person who's standing there, or the person who called, is supposed to be charged with simple drug possession. And if you are, and you have legal counsel, tell your lawyer, because it is very possible that you can use that as your defense. No one is supposed to be arrested at the scene of an overdose when police arrive. And the reason for that is to encourage people to call 911. So I talked a little bit about supervised consumption sites and overdose prevention sites. How many are there in Nanaimo? Are they around here? There's one? Is it around? Is it nearby?
Yeah, it's like 10
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's at the top of us, up the hill, right next to City Hall.
Do you find that
That's
police,
Dungeon
do the
Street,
police
isn't it?
loiter outside of it at all?
They drive by.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean,
Right next door to City Hall, actually.
yeah, that's an interesting one.
Oh, I think it's perfect because they can hang out in the lawns and stuff in the summer.
I'm surprised that they went for that,
Raising stuff.
you know?
Well,
I feel like they're. So, for what it's worth, the PSSG's Public Safety Solicitor General ministry that's a provincial ministry, it's kind of like the COP ministry, recently sent out a large directive to police across the province and said that supervised consumption sites and overdose prevention sites are not a priority for policing. To me, I was quite shocked. I would not have expected that to come from the big police, but they have basically said, it's not serving us to enforce outside of or in supervised consumption sites and overdose prevention sites. This is the notice that someone gave to me, and it does clarify that despite the end of the exemption, so that's the decriminalization exemption, enforcement against possession in health-focused spaces is not a policing priority. If you go to your supervised consumption site or your health facility and you're finding that police are loitering outside or it's making you uncomfortable, you may wish to take this notice. I can send copies to Anne to bring to the next meeting. You may want to give your healthcare provider this notice so that they can put it on the door or window outside of the clinic to say, reminder, this is not a space where we're encouraging police to arrest people, because the data is very clear that when police loiter outside of health and harm reduction sites, surprise, people don't want to use them. So this is a notice that we would hope police are following.
Can I just say that I don't remember voting this decriminalization field in my government, in my province. I don't remember there being a vote where we got to say whether we were gonna do it or not. If it was in democracy or not.
Yeah, they didn't do it by
Who
vote.
made that choice? That's what I wanna know.
the
And when did they do it? And why didn't they ask us?
3 years ago, BC Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions.
Okay, so they just pushed it through.
Yes.
They said, okay, we have a good idea. We set them up with drugs for the last 15 years. Let's take them all away. Let's take away
Oh, he's talking about safe supply, I
so
think.
now it's even harder for them to survive. I don't remember having a fucking choice.
So decriminalization was actually supposed to be helpful in the sense that it meant
So
people wouldn't
bringing
be arrested.
it back in.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I know.
I
recrim.
remember saying
Okay.
that anybody is saying in the day,
Yes.
as a citizen of British Columbia or a citizen of Canada, that you have a choice here. Do you think it's a good idea or not? No. So we just go ahead and had made the fucking rule that it's illegal again. I'd like to know who that person is.
Yeah. That would probably be David Eby.
Oh, good.
He's our premier.
Excellent. So he makes that choice by himself? No, he can't, obviously.
Well, he
His
and his
government.
government have made that choice, and it's
So in their Parliament buildings in Victoria, they sat there one day and said, you know what? I
No, the police lobbied them good and hard.
And I'm gonna fuck them hard if I can. Everybody with me? And all fucking 50 of those people that hate drugs in that thing, and whatever, said yes. And so 50 people in BC decided that we can't use drugs legally here anymore. That seems cool.
something to
Just saying.
organize around for sure. But I mean, are we surprised though?
That's,
This is
that
what.
leads
this
to a
is
question
we
of
do.
what is this committee useful for? If we can't stop something like that from happening, what is our purpose here? Well, I don't feel like they've
Where
got
we're
the
at it,
message.
you want it like that, right? That's just
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that it's, you know, we're all exhausted and it's depressing and we're
It's a waste
losing
of
our
money.
friends and
It's a
family.
waste of
Yeah, it
energy
is.
for everybody.
It's a waste of energy.
I get caught every time. Every time they come rolling on the bikes. My 6-up crew is not very good, so,
But
you know.
we still need to organize and we still need to have a presence and we still need to push, right?
Yeah.
Because if we
I
don't,
mean, let's be
it'll
honest,
be
they're
worse.
not busting me. I haven't got charged with anything more than me at
No,
the time.
just steal your drugs and your stuff.
They don't have to, so I appreciate that, you know, but at the same time, it's not, they know I'm sitting here doing nothing except for just smoking some dope or whatever, right? So I mean, like, to even waste the time of that, you
Yeah.
could be doing actually something, my concern is violent crimes.
It's true to theirs too.
Crimes that actually physically hurt other people, you know? Those are my concerns. Those are the things I think they should be policing. Because it's happening more and more with less shelters and less support systems that there is in this town right now. It's happening every day, and I think somebody might have actually been a victim of it last night, I'm not sure.
Not enough people get behaved with
I think somebody might have been a major
Okay, keep going.
victim of it last night.
Okay. I'm gonna move on just to some quick rights or things to be aware of when speaking with police. My sort of suggestion is always that silence is golden. If you end up, I can say pretty certainly that if you do end up arrested and you call a lawyer, they're gonna tell you to say nothing until they get there. And the same stands for when you are interacting in the community. Obviously, you all know best for yourselves when you do or don't want to speak to police. And I have lots of clients who say, you know what, the safest thing for me is to respond when they talk to me because I don't want to get the shit kicked out of me. And that is completely like, you will know your safety better than anyone else. Legally speaking, and when I say legally, that's what it says on the paper, but it's not always how things play out on the ground. But legally, you generally don't need to speak to police. You don't have to say hi, you don't have to respond when they say hi, you don't have to give them information except under certain circumstances. Those are, if you are under arrest, then you need to give your name. You don't have to give any other information. I would suggest that you don't give any other information unless you feel compelled to. One key thing to note is that when you are speaking to police, I'll get you in one sec. When you're speaking to police, they are keeping track of everything you say. They are allowed and able to use whatever you say against you. You know, even I have clients who've had police say, "Oh, how's Joe doing?" And they say, "Oh, you know, he's fine," thinking it's a somewhat friendly interaction. That information can later be used against their friend Joe, because you've just confirmed that he is in the neighborhood or whatever, maybe he's breaching a condition or. So, you know, generally not speaking to police is the safest route. Did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so I was arrested recently at ICE actually once for absolutely no reason. They held me for 4 hours and couldn't find any kind of charges that were actually being pressed, so
Mm.
they released me. But like, she asked me my birthday